Hello everyone and welcome to the channel. I'm Emmanuel, I'm an airline pilot and a PMDG 777 beta tester. Welcome to another video. This time we are going to focus on the new navigation database. Amidst the 777 release, people have been talking about a lot of the aircraft, but something that in my opinion kind of fall under the hood a little bit was the new NAV database. So what exactly is a navigation database? The navigation database is the part of the flight management computer that stores all the information about procedures in the different airports or in the en route environment. So for example, over here you can see a lovely radius to fix procedure inbound to Madeira airport that we're going to fly in a few moments to show this one off. Now, on top of that are also all kind of different lag types, en route procedures, holding definitions, and so on. And all of these have seen the long-awaited improvement with the 777 release. And yes, of course, that's also going to be ported into the 737, even though at this moment there is no release date known for it. So, going forward from here, what exactly can we expect from the new database then? Most importantly, more accurate procedures. So, if we have a look at an example, today we're going to fly the RNP Zulu approach runway 05 at Madeira. And this one has a focus on the lag type that flight simulators appreciate the most, and that is the radius to fix lag. So radius to fix means that the width of a turn is defined based upon an artificial DME arc around an artificial station. We can see that, for example, looking at our route over here from Mike Alpha 526 towards Mike Alpha 522, there is this 03 arc in here. This means that the turn definition of this particular turn is based upon a 3 DME arc around an artificial station. And we've got all kind of different definitions for these arcs over here, which then prescribe the exact routing. But radius to fix is only the most famous lag type that we have seen with the new database. It also has all kind of other fix like distance to altitude and so on. So basically all the lag types that exist in the real world databases now also exist in the PMDG database. Something that's also really worth pointing out is the glide path that you have on the legs page. So previously this glide path over here used to be a calculation from the FMS based on the altitude. So you would have the runway at this altitude, then the next waypoint at this altitude, and then it would calculate the path for you. That was not what the real airplane would do. The real airplane would go ahead and take that glide path from the database, and if you proceed, let's say, direct to Mike Alpha 504, just as an example, then the glide path over here would define the exact VNAV path that would be calculated by the aircraft, and when VNAV is on approach logic, then it would simply fly level until it intercepts that glide slope. So that way you can really fly non-precision approaches very, very accurately. We will see this in action in a few moments once we start the approach over here. As you can see, we've got the vertical path defined by the 3 degrees over here, and all the altitude restrictions are above restrictions. So that 3-degree path is going to be our defining path on the approach. So with all of that out of the way, let's go ahead and have a look at this particular approach that we're going to fly as an example today. Now I am quickly going to exit the holding over here so that we can start our approach itself, and then we can have a quick look at what we have over here, and most importantly we can have a quick look into how exactly to fly an approach like this particular one. So first of all, in the flight preparation phase, we gotta verify that all of our constraints here are correct. So for example, from PLIM above 3000, maximum 230 knots. Okay, we have that. Then we continue on to Mike Alpha 530, above 2000 feet, we have that. Mike Alpha 528, above 2000, and that's a little turn in here. As we can see, that is a radius to fix turn, as we have defined over here, based on a 5 DME arc. So like that, we basically go over all the waypoint. Now here's something very important. When you fly an approach like this, you might encounter speed restrictions, and those speed restrictions are very important, because if you exceed those, you will probably not be able to fly the arc that's been defined on the leg thereafter. So if, for example, we ignore this maximum 195 knot restriction and flew, let's say, 250 knots instead, then the airplane would probably not be able to fly or to follow the lateral routing here in particular. Now, also important when you set an approach like this up is to go on the last of the progress pages, and in here you've got the RNP and the vertical RNP. So if we look down here, we can see that our minimum is based upon how precisely the aircraft is able to track our routing. And in order to get the lowest minima, we need the lowest RNP over here. And for that reason, I've manually entered RNP 0.1 for our approach, and I've also entered a vertical RNP of 125. If we do that, then the airplane is going to give us a warning over here on the primary flight display if we exceed the vertical limits of the approach, which are defined as 75 feet. Now those 75 come right out of the law. They're not on the approach chart, so you will not be able to find them over here. Okay, so that is the approach itself, and then obviously we have the missed approach as well, as you can see, once again based on radius to fixed legs, as you can see over here. Now, one question you may ask is, so why exactly do we have these kind of procedures in the first place? The easy answer is because you can very easily define an exact routing like this. You can define the routing down to an accuracy of 0.1 nautical mile, and by providing this level of accuracy, we're able to fly very, very close to the mountain over here, as you can see on the chart, and on this particular procedure into Madeira. Now, I know that a couple of you will be complaining, why is he flying a 777 in a Madeira, what a noob, and the honest answer to that is, it's a sim. Enjoy yourself, have some fun, don't take everything too seriously. Okay, so with that, we've basically looked into the entire procedure, so let's go ahead and start, first of all, to slow our aircraft down a little bit, and then we are going to reset the MCP altitude all the way down to the minimum, 530. Here we go. LNAV and VNAV are active, so we can start our approach here in a few moments. The one thing that we have to ensure as pilots is that our aircraft meets the required speed restrictions. And that's really something that we should be very careful with, because at any time we have to keep in mind aircraft are not perfect machines. They may or may not follow the requirements from the FMS correctly. And that's the same problem with real aircraft as well. For that reason, it is standard operating procedure when flying a non-precision approach using VNAV that we actually do speed intervent and take care of the speed manually instead of letting the automatics do it, so that as pilots we simply have better control over it. Now, the great benefit of this type of approach obviously is lower landing minima. You will recall that the standard circling approach in Madeira has a minimum somewhere around 1,100 feet, if I remember that correctly. This one has a minima down to 530 feet, so that's really very, very low. And obviously it makes approaches in a lot worse weather conditions possible than what would normally be possible. Also, we are going to keep the autopilot engaged for this approach, and we are going to have a look at how accurate the autopilot can actually get us in. Now, always remember though, it's a machine, that means it's not perfect, so ultimately, even though the autopilot can fly stuff like this, it's still you, as pilot in command, that is in charge of the approach going correctly. But with all of that talking out of the way now, let's go ahead and have a look into how the aircraft is actually going to fly the approach. So, we've overflown waypoint 526, that's the one with a 195 knot restriction, and you can see that we're now following the LNAV routing that we have over here. It's not a great bank angle that we need, but nonetheless at 250 knots you would probably not or barely just be able to follow this approach. So 160 knot restriction coming up at the next waypoint, that means we can go flaps 15 over here. Well, so speed is slowly coming down, and the aircraft, most importantly, is following that 3-degree glide path. So it's not an idle path descent at the moment, because there's the 3-degree restriction in here already, so that takes precedence over anything else there.
2500.
Okay, terrain noted. Gear down, flaps 20. Cabin ready, excellent. So, to meet the 160 knots, let's go flaps 25. And then we might as well go landing flaps straight away. Yeah, silence please. That was just a little warning because the flaps were greater than 20 and the gear was still in transit. Nothing to worry about. Okay, so we have the 160 knots over 522 and the airplane's following the 3-degree path in. Landing checklist complete. So now basically we can sit back, relax and enjoy the flight. And the aircraft is going to do all the rest for us. So we'll let it fly us completely onto the final approach, and only then we are going to disconnect. Remember, the minimum use height of the 777's autopilot is 200 feet AGL. So we gotta add the field elevation to that today. So we have a minimum use height of approximately 300 feet. Now that terrain warning obviously should not happen, so I am going to turn it off. The reason it does happen nonetheless is because the GPWS should have a protected approach slope, and I think PMDG are yet to implement that. But that goes for any flight sim developer as far as I'm aware. I'm not aware of any developer that actually has the protected approach slope of the GPWS programmed. Okay, so passing 1,000 and we can see field elevation is 150, so at 350 we gotta disconnect the autopilot. But just look at the level of accuracy with which the system is tracking the approach now. Okay, we're coming in on the puppies, 2 and 2. Look at how close to the terrain this approach really is. Okay. Disconnecting. We should have reset the altitude. Then we should have been able to fly down on the autopilot as well. But look at that, flight director leads us directly onto the final approach. That's the precision that we get over here. And now, of course, the puppy is not made for a wide body like the 777, so...
100. Seat rate. 40. 30. 20. 10.
Okay, and here we are. So that's about the level of precision with which you can fly your RNP AR approach. And that's the level of accuracy that the autopilot now provides with the new navigation database. Nonetheless, of course, do keep in mind that the 777 is a wide body and therefore not necessarily certified for all the kind of lovely procedures. Indeed, it was quite hard to actually find some that would suit the airplane very well, which is why I ended up just choosing Madeira over here. Alright, I do hope that you enjoyed the little demonstration of the new NAV database. You can again see the missed approach routing here as well, perfectly defined circle on the arc that we have over here. So that's going to be it for today's video. I do hope that you enjoyed this one. I do hope that you're enjoying the new NAV database. Again, pretty sure it's going to come to the 737 with one of the next updates, but obviously the 777 is the focus right now, and there is no release date currently known for the update for the 737. Thank you very much for watching. I do hope that you enjoyed this one. Give me your feedback in the comments below, and let me know your experience with the new database. Thank you for watching, everyone, and then I see you all again on the next one. Now, if you want to learn how to fly your 777 just like a real pilot, check out my Ultimate 777 Guide ebook. More on that in the video description below. Thank you for watching, and see you all again on the next one.